Multiplying and dividing integers. And I know you've all heard this before. Negative times a negative is a positive. It's the standard. And then a negative times a positive is a negative. The thing is, you want to always make sure you say times in there, not negative and a negative. It's negative times a negative is a positive, because you don't want to get it confused with addition and subtraction, which are completely different rules. But that is our rules. Negative times a negative is a positive times a positive is a negative, and then a negative divided by a negative is a positive. A negative divided by a positive is the same as a positive divided by a negative. They are both negative. So basically, if you're multiplying or dividing by two numbers, if they're both the same sign, you're going to get a plus sign. And you can think about it this way. In order to make a plus, you need these two lines. And all you're doing is taking that one and inverting it into a plus. If you only have one negative, the answer is going to be negative. Okay? Another way to think about it is this. You can look at it as if it was an opposite that we did before. What's the opposite of a bad thing? It's good. And the opposite of a good is bad. Yes, so there we go. Alright, so how we use it is this. You have negative 4 times 5. That's negative 20. So all you're going to do is multiply them as just like you would normal numbers, and then if there's one negative, the answer is negative. If you have two, then those two make a positive. So this would be 20. Negative times a negative is positive. 4 times 5, 20. Positive times a negative is negative. 4 times 5, 20. What's 4 divided by 2? Well, that's 2. And then a negative divided by a positive is negative. 4 divided by 2, 2. Negative divided by negative, positive. 4 divided by 2, it's 2. And then a positive divided by a negative is negative. Getting the idea? Even if you have a fraction, this is just division as well. It's 4 divided by 2 is 2. Negative divided by a positive is negative. You want to think of them that way as well. That little line in the middle means division. Okay, so I know I always have to ask this question, but why? Why is a negative times a positive a negative? Well, we can look at it up here and go, oh, well, opposite of bad is good. It's true. But multiplication can be thought of as, well, it can't be, it is, repeated. It's repeated addition. So 3 times 6 really means 3 6s. And you, like before with multiplication, you always want to read it from left to right. So it's 3 6s, and this would be 6 3s. So we would get this. Both of them equal 18. That's why it's commutative. So if you look at this one, and we know it's commutative, so if we take care of 2 times negative 5, it's the same as negative 5 times 2. So we'll look at this one. This says we have 2 negative 5s. So let's write that. 2 negative 5s. Well, what does that mean? That's negative 5 plus negative 5. Well, remember the rule. If you're adding, and they're the same sign, you add, and you keep the sign. It's negative 10. Okay, and I want you to try it with 4 times negative 3. So I want you to write out exactly what it means, and then write out the operations, just like before. Hit pause now and try it. And there you go. So you should say 4 negative 3s, write out 4 negative 3s being added together, and you get negative 12. 4 times 3 is 12. Positive times a negative is a negative. And there you go. Alright, so here's how it looks in a real life problem. If you had 4 times negative 5, you're thinking, why do we use these negatives? Well, here's the real life problem. We already know that that would be negative 20, right? And here's why as well. Jim owes $5 on each of his 4 credit cards. Well, he owes $5 on how many credit cards? 4. This is the same as 4 times negative 5, right? It's repeated addition, which gives us negative $20. That is his current financial situation. He owes, oops, we don't need the minus because we just put owes $20. Alright, see if you can do the next one. Current temperature is 0 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature is dropping 5 degrees every hour, then what will the temperature be in 4 hours? So hit pause now. And there you go. So we had 4 temperature changes of 5 degrees dropped. So 4 times negative 5, the new temperature would be minus 20 degrees. If you did not use the negative, you'd have 20 degrees. And that's not correct. Alright. So what about division? Why does it work the same for division? Well, division and multiplication are just inverse operations. So if you had 6 divided by negative 3, whatever answer we get would have to fit here. What it's asking is, when you have 6 divided by negative 3, it's asking negative 3 times what would give us 6. And that answer would have to be negative 2. So positive divided by negative is negative. Even works for negatives. What's a negative divided by negative? Well, let's find out. Negative 3 times what gives you negative 6? Well, if we know that multiplication, a negative times a negative, is a positive, right? So it can't be a negative. Has to be a positive. Negative times a positive is a negative, so that would have to be 2. So a negative divided by a negative is also a positive 2. And there you go. Works the same with multiplication and division. Now I threw some extra on here. These are exponents because I want you to see the difference. We've done over integers before. And when you have this minus in front, you can think of this as still opposite. And the reason is we have a 2 to the 4 here. So there's a little group right here that that we don't really see. It's just kind of a lazy form of writing it. But if you see a minus in front, it's not included. It sticks out in front. It's the opposite of 2 to the 4th, which is minus 16. The way you want to include a negative when you're doing exponents is you have to put it in parentheses. Like that. And that would give us now a positive 16, because a negative times a negative. I went really quick there, didn't I? So negative 2 times negative 2, well, that's positive 4. Negative 2 times negative 2, that's positive 4. And 4 times 4 is 16. So if it's included, you include it. If it's not included, don't include it. Just bring it down as you go.